Bright Suns, and welcome back to an all-new episode of Let's Talk About Star Wars with Maggie Levitt. Today's episode is going to be a book review episode. I am going to be talking about the last of the Alphabet Squadron trilogy, which just came out this month. So I'm going to be changing up the order of today's episode. I'm going to do a bit of unboxing first. So anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to read Alphabet Squadron and to read Victory's Price yet, go ahead as soon as I'm done talking about two of the things that I picked up this week. Go ahead and stop this video, pop it in a playlist, and come back after you have read the book because I really do not want to spoil anything about Victory's Price. So first up, I'm going to... As you may or may not be able to tell, I have a bit of a Baby Yoda shrine going on with my porgs, and I just could not resist the urge to pick up the newest child merch over at the Disney store. I decided that it was for my own birthday. My birthday is this week on March 17th, which is why I have my beautiful shamrock porg and shamrock earrings and shamrock lights flickering in the background. So it was a bit of a treat yourself experience for me. It was really hard to decide which of the new child merch I had to have because honestly I wanted all of them, but I did narrow it down to just one, and I picked up this adorable little guy. So let me open it up and show off what's inside. So this adorable little thing is meditating. I chose this one because I, unsurprisingly, really enjoyed the tragedy. If you watched my Let's Talk About Star Wars episode discussing the tragedy, I obviously love Robert Rodriguez. I am also a huge fan of the arc that was presented in that episode with the Razor Crest going boom. I still think it's hilarious. And then, of course, the reintroduction of Boba Fett and Fennec Shand. So I thought, why not get the child that is from that episode? So here he is, meditating, like all of us should meditate. So let's... so he is going to be joining my little friends back here on the pillow shrine. There he goes, right next to the Batu porg. So he is my new little guy. And then I also picked up a new mug for myself. I think that I am on a no more mug embargo in my household. I have quite a few mugs that I do not use, but this is my new Mandalorian mug that I also picked up from the Disney store that I'm going to be using as my glass to drink out of when I'm doing Let's Talk About Star Wars. So this was something I could not pass up on. I also got a few more things that are out for delivery at some time in the next month. So I'm sure I'll be back with more unboxings. Everyone seems to really enjoy seeing some of the stuff that I pick up. I think it's such a fun part of being a Star Wars fan is all of us collecting different things that mean something to us and sharing it with each other on the interwebs. So with that short little segment over, I am going to jump into some of the highlights from Victory's Price and the Alphabet Squadron in general. So first of all, a huge thank you to Penguin Random House and Del Rey Books for providing me with an advanced reader's copy of Victory's Price. I wrote my review for it late February. I had a digital copy of it, and they were kind enough to send me a physical copy as well. So just huge thank you to everyone over there. Honestly, if you are like me and you work with the PR teams for some of the publishers, you will know that they are truly some of the kindest, nicest, most helpful people that you could ever work with. So huge shout out to all of them over there. This book and this series is kind of really important to me in a lot of ways. I received my very first Star Wars arc, and it was Shadowfall last year. I had not read the first Alphabet Squadron, and so I had to jump and find it and read it when I was given the arc for this. It was my very first review at my new job last year when I joined Your Money Geek. So it's very sentimental, and it's really surreal to be here talking about the final book in the trilogy a year out. It's been such an incredible year. And this book was the perfect culmination of the Alphabet Squadron books. I think that Alexander Freed is a tremendous author. The way that he writes is super engaging. His characters are nuanced and flawed, and I think, something that I've talked about with the High Republic books is that with so many new characters, it can be really hard to get a feel for them right out of the gate. But somehow Alexander was able to create these characters set within this world that we were really familiar with, and we know these characters like Mon Mothma and Hera Syndulla, and then you have all of these new characters. You have Will, and you have Erica, and you have all of these new characters that feel like people that you've known, that you've been there with in these both fun, great times and horrible moments of tragedy and betrayal and distrust and growth. And I just feel like this trilogy is a series that has been really slept on. I know a lot of people who have not yet picked up the Alphabet Squadron, and I don't know if they were just waiting until all 3 books are out or if they just didn't want to read another series about pilots. But Star Wars is so interesting, in which the pilots are really important, integral parts of the story. I mean, so many of the main characters in the Star Wars universe are pilots, so it makes sense that they would create these series about pilots. And I think Alphabet Squadron is just different and set beyond anything that we've seen, both with like the X-Wing series from the expanded universe and a lot of the new books that we're getting with the High Republic and just other Star Wars books that have come out in the last 5 years or so. These characters are such different beings. They're allowed to be both sides of the spectrum and to exist somewhere in the middle. And I think that's why Erica Quell is such an interesting character to me, because she has been on both extremes. She's fought for the good guys. She's swayed to the dark side, to work for the Empire, and she's betrayed the people that place their trust in her. And this book did not go the direction that I thought it was going to go. After Shadowfall, I was really worried about where Erica's place would be among these people that she had called friends and among this, rebellion, because I felt that she had passed the point that Star Wars usually allows characters to come back from. We've seen people who have converted from the Empire to the Rebels in the video games, and we've seen this kind of this experience before, but I didn't have faith. I did not have hope that they would treat her story the way that I was wanting it to be treated. And then I was entirely surprised by some of the dialogue and some of the content. And I hope that it is a portent of what's to come in the Star Wars franchise, that these characters who are flawed and make really bad mistakes in the middle of a war are allowed to come back from that and are allowed to not be made an example of. That redemption is something that is available to everyone, because I think that's at its core what Star Wars is about, and redemption doesn't have to mean death. And I'm so excited and so ready for everyone to read this book, because there's a lot of conversations that happened within the last 3 or 4 chapters that are really relevant to a lot of conversations that happen in the Star Wars fandom quite regularly, and more often following the rise of Skywalker. There was a lot of theorizing leading up to the rise of Skywalker with the rise of Kylo Ren comics, that maybe there was this path forward for that character, that he would be allowed to be redeemed and to make amends for the crimes that he had committed against the Resistance. And that was something that a lot of us wanted for that character. And then you have all of these people who are like, no, he should be put on trial, and he should be charged for his war crimes, and all of this, very, very, it's a difficult situation. It's war. But I feel like too often we overlook the fact that this is a fantasy and this is not 100% real, and the things that we would do in a real situation with war criminals are not the same things that we would do in fiction, and that's okay. Like, it's great to look at fiction as a reflection of society, but that doesn't mean that we have to ascribe every single one of our day-to-day choices into fictional fantasy worlds. I mean, that is the reason why it's fiction and not, a biography. And so I was worried that we were going to go down that route with Erica, that if she did sway back to the rebels, that they would be like, we have to make an example of her and, put her on trial and charge her for her crimes and throw her in jail or kill her, and not allow her to live with the causation of her choices. I mean, she's done bad things and she's caused people to die and she has made grievous errors, but true redemption can only be found in rectifying those choices and living with them and having to move through the day every day knowing that you have done things that have hurt people and are working towards being a better person. So I'm going to read this little snippet after this long, lengthy little ramble here. I'm going to read this little snippet of a conversation between Hera Syndulla and Mon Mothma that I thought was really, really interesting, and I highlighted it on my digital copy and then put my cute little Baby Yoda bookmark on the page so that I could talk to you all about it. So it's literally at the end of the book. It's page 439. They're discussing what to do with Erica now that they've brought her back to the rebellion, and Hera is the voice of reason, and I love Hera so much. She says, "The rebellion got dirty sometimes, but the dream was pure. The ideal was pure. If we were still rebels, we would have forgiven her. And you know it? I don't like the thought that winnings made us harder." Mon Mothma, of course, says, "Nor do I, but there are luxuries we no longer have. We were a storm, shifting and chaotic, battering the walls of a fortress of evil. Now we're rebuilding where the fortress stood, and I have to consider whether each stone in our foundation can carry the weight of that future." And then Mon Mothma continues, "Still, if we lock Erica Quell away for her crimes after everything she's done to redeem herself." Hera then continues, "What hope do any of them have?" And so I think this is just this whole section from about 437 to about 442 or so is really interesting because there's a lot of back and forth about if they make an example out of Erica, what does that mean for all of the other ex-Imperials who want to move back into the rebels and to help with the rebuilding and to make amends for the decisions they've made? You have to remember that the Empire is a very predatory institution, and so there's a lot of people that were led to believe that that was the only way for them to survive and for them to move forward, and they hitch themselves to a truly evil organization. But that doesn't mean that every single one of those people are evil. That just means that they're a cog in the wheels of destruction and the Empire. And with rebuilding on the foundations of hope, you have to give those people hope that there is a better tomorrow and that they can be part of something and can redeem themselves. And so I like that Alexander took the time to have this kind of reflection on what it means for the rebels, the good guys, to make these hard choices, because I'm sure there are thousands of people within the rebels that would want to make an example out of Erica for everything she did and for the loved ones of those people that died because of her. But we see that later in the epilogue. We see how she has still carried the burden and the weight of what happened. And so I just thought that this book was just something that I was not expecting. I went in with very low expectations, expecting them to make that example out of Erica, and to yet again follow this kind of redemption can only be found in death, but redemption can be found in living. And I think that redemption is more poignant when you actually have a character that has to grapple with the realities of what they have done. So I cannot speak highly enough about this book. Every single page of this book is a ride that you do not want to miss out on. The entire series is so worth your time. The audiobooks are super awesome. If you don't want to read, they are, quite large books. But it makes me really excited for some of these more standalone series. I know the next few phases of publishing is going to be centered around the High Republic, but I'm really excited to see what other pieces of the Star Wars story that we're going to be seeing in the future. And I really hope that Alexander writes more, because I really like his writing style and the characters and just everything about what he gave us with Alphabet Squadron. And on that note, that is all I have to say about Victory's Price. But I did want to add something about publishing and Star Wars and some of the news that came out this week. I know that there's probably 50 YouTube videos right now from people who are chicken littling this situation. Honestly, there's nothing to be concerned about with them canceling the Ultimate Visual Guide to The Mandalorian. I don't know if you know this, but you can't have an ultimate guide if you only have 2 seasons and an entire slate of new shows set within that same universe announced. You can't give an ultimate depiction of Boba Fett from his few episodes in The Mandalorian if you're going to have the Book of Boba Fett. You can't give a full ultimate guide to Ahsoka if Ahsoka's going to have her own series. You can't give a full ultimate guide to Din when there are more seasons and more stories of him to come. So honestly, it's not that big of a deal. Books get canceled all the time, and it's really not uncommon for a series that is still evolving and still growing to have these issues come up. And the same with Adam Christopher's Mandalorian standalone novel. I know it's like kind of unfortunate that he's most likely finished it and now they've canceled publication of it. But things are changing, the stories are changing. I trust Lucasfilm and Disney and all of their publishing partners to do a good job. And so I'm not worried. You shouldn't be worried. It's not that big of a deal. But depending on who you listen to on YouTube, it probably sounds like the end of the world. It's not. Chill. Be like the child. Just be zen. It's fine. I promise you. And on that note, now that I got that out of the way, I would like to wish all of you the happiest of weeks. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Thank you so much for being so awesome last week with my mom as the special guest. It was super awesome and I enjoyed doing that. And maybe in the future she will come back and answer a few more questions and offer her sage advice and witty commentary. Maybe when the Book of Boba Fett is back, we'll see what we can make happen. But until then, thank you so much for watching. If you aren't a subscriber, thank you for listening. Sorry for rambling. I have shifted into a more me just talking into the camera, not scripting these things out model. So I'm super thankful that you are still here listening to me talk about Star Wars. With that, may the Force be with you. And, wear a mask, get vaccinated, do your part.